Welcome to this episode of Level with Emily Reese, featuring a conversation with Rob Kovacs and his music for Straylight, which came out earlier this year, January 2023. Straylight is a VR game where you're basically swinging through and flying through the cosmos, very 80s theme. And so Rob's music is vintage 80s synth. He used a Prophet 5, which is, oh God, it's just so good. It's one of my favorite things in the world to hear music like this. And I say it right in the opening, so I don't want to spoil it, but I'm going to spoil it anyway. I love the modern take on these vintage sounds, which I guess I'll explain later. But anyway, yeah, super fun soundtrack and so enjoyable to talk to Rob about it. We've had Rob on the show before as 88-bit, and as that alter ego 88-bit, he plays piano versions of 8-bit music in a very difficult technical way. I mean, he's so talented. And so that's his alter ego 88-bit. We talk about that a little bit, but we mostly talk about Straylight. We basically go track by track and kind of peel back the layers and hear why it sounds the way it sounds, whether that's rhythmically or harmonically. Because Rob's studio is set up in a way that he can sit at his piano while he's recording a conversation and talking with me, and he can demonstrate stuff. And so there's a lot of that in this episode, which is just awesome. I just loved it, talking to him about the theory and the rhythms and all kinds of amazing stuff about this truly fantastic soundtrack. Subscribe to this YouTube channel if you would. We'd love to have you counted amongst the numbers there. And that way you won't miss any of our videos if you sign up for notifications and stuff like that. Join us on Discord. That link is down in the show notes. Talk to us about this and other episodes of Level. And if you're able to support us financially on Patreon, that would be fantastic. We would love to have your support. We'd be grateful for it. There's a new exclusive sticker for patrons at the $5 level, so you can learn more about that. Sign up and join us at patreon.com/level. All right, well, here is Rob Kovacs talking about Straylight. So yeah, some of the things I really loved is the groove. There's like this modern groove with these, quote unquote, old timey synths, right? So it's like this kind of really fun, in my brain, from someone who grew up in the 80s and has such a, I think, different relationship to those sounds than someone in their 20s, right? It just had this really fun, I'm trying not to say the word marriage. Fuck it. Marriage. I don't know why I didn't want to in my brain. I'm like, don't use that word. And who cares? It's a good marriage of like, the 80s and like more modern beats, right? And I loved that. I loved your transitions are so fun. And
oh, wow. Thank you.
Yeah. And every time I listened through it, I was like, no, this one's my favorite.
Awesome.
Which also was super fun. So first, before we, get too crazy into each track, I'd love to just hear you describe the game. It's a VR game, obviously. And then we'll go from there.
Yeah, the game's called Straylight. It's a VR-only game, and it will only ever be a VR game because you basically use two hands to shoot grapple beams on these like floating anchor nodes, and you pull and swing yourself around, and it feels like you're flying through space. And it's awesome.
Yeah.
It's the experience of feeling like you're flying is what makes it so fun. On top of that, we have a lot of great visuals, and just this, it feels like you're just somewhere you've never been before. And the level design is very, very challenging, but it's like, it's like old school platformers that you die a lot, but you see that it's possible, and you keep wanting to achieve the, get past the obstacle. So that's the main premise of the game. Mm-hmm. We specifically set out to make a movement game in VR that doesn't make people sick, which is like a silly thing to say about gaming, but if you're familiar with VR, it is VR sickness, which is motion sickness
real.
Essentially.
It's real.
Yeah. And when your brain sees something and your body's feeling something different, that's essentially what's going to cause motion sickness.
Right.
And so with a game like this, where there's a lot of movement, people see it and they're like, oh, well, I'm just going to barf immediately. And it's not like that. Like we've specifically made it so that we took out everything that would make people give that feeling of motion sickness. So getting rid of the walls and the ceiling and the floor actually makes it help you feel like you're floating. Another thing, like having control of your movement. So you don't move unless you like move your arm. That's like kind of like what powers this Straylight, we call it.
Okay.
So you have control over your movements and your acceleration. And seems to be enough to let people feel comfortable, even people who've never played VR, because we've demoed this and exhibited it at a lot of conventions. And a lot of times it's people's first time in VR, and we put them in this game.
Wow.
And they love it. They do a great job, and almost everyone is fine. Every once in a while, someone, no matter what, is going to feel a little uncomfortable.
Yeah.
And I always just say, like, anytime, this is for anyone in VR, first time, if you ever feel uncomfortable in VR, just like close your eyes.
Yeah, right.
Reorient yourself.
Yep. Yeah.
You can always do that. So that's a little bit about what the game is.
Yeah.
And it's on all headsets, everything except PSVR 2, which just came out. We are hopeful to get it on PSVR 2, but we are on PSVR 1. So if you have a PSVR 1 and you still play it, or you want to take it out again, try Straylight.
Nice. And it's really, describe it like visually too, the colors. Like it's very neon in ways. It's, Yeah,
it's very vibrant, neon, also kind of dark because we're in space-ish, virtual space. But we initially started with like Tron, like the 80s, like Tron kind of graphics or synthwave type graphics. Those were an early inspiration, and graphically moved on a little bit from that. So it's very like, there's these what we call monuments in every level. So there's like a track that you kind of follow, a path that you follow. There's obstacles, and then every level has a different atmosphere and a different monument, which are all like visually pretty stunning and abstract. Okay. And also fairly simple, but part of that is to make it so that we could put it on every headset. We had to keep the graphics somewhat simplified so that we could focus on the gameplay. Because if you start dropping frames in VR, that's another thing that's going to make people sick. So.
That makes sense. How did you meet the team? How did you become a part of the team?
We started at Global Game Jam in 2018. In January.
Fun.
Yeah. And three of us worked on 48-hour film projects for like years. So this is a similar thing. You get 2 days to make a thing. And we did a bunch of movies that way, and I did all the music for those. So the main cinematographer for the films, also who did all the graphics, met these two programmers, and he then brought me and Ben on to be a part of it too.
Oh, cool.
That's how it started, and immediately it was a cool idea, cool concept, and we all were like, "Yeah, let's make this a real game."
Had you had a Prophet 5 already?
I did. Yeah, I did.
Oh, okay.
So that's why we kind of went with like an 80s thing. In the Global Game Jam, there's like these like targets. It's like they have a bunch of different like targets. I'm not even sure. You don't like get any points, and there's no awards, but you can just say like, "We went for this one," and one of them was 80s. So I was like, well, I have this Prophet 5, which is a quintessential 80s synth, and I've really never really used. I bought it from someone like it would have been about 10 years prior to that.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Yeah, he let me borrow it. He was selling it. I was like, can I try it? And I just immediately fell in love with it. Like, I need to buy this. And I'll figure it out eventually. Yeah. So even then, I didn't really know how to use it that well, but I played around with it enough and made what is the Straylight theme, and pretty much left it untouched for the album. So I did that in just those 2 days, and that was the beginning of everything. Wow.
The one called Straylight?
Yeah.
God, that track is so great. This is the one that I'm going to say that 1,000 times, so I'm not even going to say that. But I love the transitions. But there's this really fun octave play too, which I know is like a part of the synth, right? That's like you can make it do these cool patterns and sequences and all those things. But, making those interesting and non-repetitive is part of the hope too, right? Like,
oh yeah.
Yeah. And so at one point there's just kind of all this just octaves, right? But you're not doing them just back and forth. You're just doing more interesting things with it. I just had this conversation with someone right before this interview about how this is a tangent. I feel so comfortable talking about music, but when it comes to describing electronic music, I kind of lack a lot of the right vocabulary because I can't be like, oh, I love that clarinet line, or I love that, the low strings that come in, or the distorted trumpet or whatever. So I'm just like, I don't know what to call these things.
There's unless you're really keen on like, that's a sawtooth sound and that's a square wave.
See, and that's what I was like,
0.75.
God, maybe I need to really teach myself the sounds of those wave shapes. So anyway, that's a whole other thing that I've just been struggling with as a
I think everyone does. I don't. There's no specific way to like refer to these sounds. And, and all of them were like made like on the synthesizer. You can create your own sounds. So
right, exactly. Like, what do you call it?
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, just talk to me about whatever you want to talk to me about the track that's actually called Straylight. You go, and then I'll point out some other things I liked about it.
Yeah, that was the first one. I was so part of the inspiration for that was actually Stravinsky's Petrushka. There's a section in the fourth movement called "Dance of the Coachman and Grooms," and because I was playing that piece, I was like just recently hired to play that piece with an orchestra. So I was like listening to it, and there is that section just starts with this suspended dominant chord, and it just you're just waiting. It just feels like you're waiting. And it just has this like floating feeling, and that type of sound that is basically a dominant in the bass and a one chord on top. So a 1-6-4 or a suspended dominant, we were going to call it.
Yeah.
Oh, that's not a 1-6-4. That's a suspended dominant. But the same kind of idea, that 1-6-4 type sound. It just feels like you're just waiting for it to go here.
You're going to go somewhere. Right.
And but when it doesn't, it just feels like it's floating. So I use that like concept. I use a different chord, a B in B major.
Oh.
And so we have this like pad up top that's in B.
Yeah.
B hexachord, and then it's just sitting on this F sharp and like dancing around, but never quite going to one until finally the chorus will go to one.
Yes.
And then So, and then when you get there, then it's like, okay, we're finally in the groove. And my whole thought was I hadn't seen the game. It was only concepts at this point. We had nothing to go off of, and I saw like one little pink. They were pink at the time, pink node. That was it. So it was all conceptual. What would it be like for someone to feel like they're floating for the first time? It would be uncomfortable and awkward, but cool and exhilarating.
Yeah.
So there's like these big swells that kind of come in, which kind of give the feeling of lift. And then the melody's kind of like all over the place. There's no clear melody yet. And then the drums come in, and those are all like kind of all over the place and very wonky. And just like that feeling of awkwardness, like trying to skateboard for the first time or ride a bike for the first time without training wheels. And that's kind of what I was trying to indicate musically. But once you get it, then it's like, oh, this is awesome. So that's like what the chorus is, that we're finally hit one, and we get a solid melody. Yeah. And it's a rising melody too, like more indicating of taking off.
Yep, there's a lot of that in the whole soundtrack, and oh shit, what did you just say that made me want to say about going to one? Oh, just the fact that there is that kind of wonderment in that track, and in some of the others too. Like there's just like it's just exciting, and and the groove helps it feel good too. It's like the perfect weather on the perfect day on the it's like that kind of music, which is
I love that.
Awesome, but that when this voice comes in, I think it comes in on the 6. I should have brought my laptop over so I could play things to you too that you could then play back to me or something, but but I didn't. But yeah, there's this voice that just comes in, kind of just interrupts everything to transition into that section, which I just loved that. I just loved that change.
Yeah, we have there was melodic ideas, but really no clear melody. And then that really it's louder in the mix, and then that's that. You're talking about that melody?
Yeah.
Yep. Yeah, it comes in. It's loud. It's mixed loud, and it's just a very synthy sawtooth sound, and very bouncy. There's a track by a guy named Trent Moriarty. I think he's in Norway or something, that I used to like a lot, and it has a similar octavey kind of bounce to it.
Yep.
Definitely kind of took from that, and
yeah.
So that was the first track, and kind of set the tone for the rest of the game.
That makes sense.
Because even then, the main kind of artistic director was all right, so you have to just use that synth for everything, right?
You're okay.
Because it has such a cool, unique sound.
Yeah.
I didn't even save half those sounds on that track, so I don't have that opening pad or the bass.
Oh, no.
That's another issue with there's a lot of issues with the synthesizer. I mean, it is old. It's from 1980.
Yeah.
And it only has 40 banks, 40 sound patches.
Oh.
And I had to record pretty much over all of them. And I wanted to keep some of them because they're iconic, but I kept one.
Oh, God. Can't you... Well, that's just going to demonstrate that I don't know shit about a Prophet 5. So,
it was revolutionary.
Aren't you you're dialing the things to make the sounds, right?
Yeah.
So can you make yourself a key or take a photo or
Yeah, you could do that. You could take a photo.
Okay,
but even then, actually, that's not quite right because it has digital recall. So you hit the button and it recalls everything, but the knobs don't actually move. So you can recall a sound, which is often what I would do. I would have a sound, and I'd start there, and then tweak the knobs.
Yeah.
But maybe I might not tweak every knob.
I see. Okay. I see. Yep. Gotcha. Crazy.
Yeah.
Oh, sounds so good though. Starforge is seems like a popular track. It must have had some kind of special release or something, is my guess.
Yeah, we released 2 tracks as singles. That was the second single.
Oh,
Void Compass was first, and then Starforge was. It's definitely the catchiest
God
one.
Damn. Okay. Yeah, Starforge, really great groove. And this one, I was just you must have just been smiling at some point making this track, knowing how groovy and good this one feels. Tell me about writing Starforge.
This is the 3rd track I did for the game, and this was the first one where I was like, all right, this is the best sounding thing I've ever made. This is the sound that it just sounds great.
Yeah.
And it was the first time I really felt that about recording, and there's always things it's I wish this was better, or I can tweak this. But this one just sounded so great all over the place. I had some, at this point I put a MIDI kit in it. So the first song for Straylight, the Straylight theme didn't have a MIDI kit, so everything had to be played. Once I had a MIDI kit, then I was able to loop or layer tracks. So that opening, for example, a little riff, just swirls around you.
Yep.
So it's just recorded twice. So I record the MIDI and then have the computer control the synth and then record the sound back onto the computer. But if you did that on a virtual synth and you layer it, it just gets louder because the synth wave. The waveform is exactly the same. But on an analog synth, it's never exactly the same. So you get cool phasing effects.
Yeah.
And it just kind of swirls all around you. So I had that, and then just built off it, threw in the bass, playing all the bass stuff. The bass kind of takes the lead the first half.
Yeah.
That was way fun. And then I could again layer it up an octave, get thicker sounds. And then the melody, the hook melody that comes in is really it's very glistening.
Yeah.
And it's it's in Hocket with the main riff.
Right. Yep.
That 1 E, and then the melody is on
Right. Yeah.
Can't play those quite together.
It's okay.
But they just fit in so nice, and then it just comes down. And then it goes back up. Big leaps.
Yep. Mimicking the movement in the game.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it was really fun. I wanted to make it longer. It's the shortest song on in the game. It's
I
only
want
2
them
minutes,
all
not even.
longer. Rob, please make all of them longer.
You know what I want to do? And I've talked about this at the label, and I think we're trying to find a way to do this. We didn't use like Fmod or Wise for this game. We just used like the Unity sound engine, which is very limited.
Yeah.
So that meant I had to make all the waves loop perfectly. So,
Okay.
So every track has like a start and then a loop. And
Sure.
so you could play the loops and it would loop perfectly. So I want to like just release the loops, like the whole soundtrack, but like the intro and the start. And then if you want to hear the loops, because some of them are different,
cool.
you can listen to it that way too.
Yeah. Awesome. That'd be awesome. I do think if I had, gun to my head, choosing a favorite, it would be The Last Campfire.
Oh, nice. Nice.
Love this track so much because it kind of sneaks up on you with its epicness, but I just love when the harmony comes in at the end and you do this like drum fill leading up to that happening and this really awesome bass line leading up to that happening. And it's just so good. It just feels so good. I loved that track.
I'm glad. That's like, it's a kind of a sleeper hit. It's like my third favorite track. And that moment is what absolutely makes it. Yeah.
Yes, that moment does make it. Tell me about it.
That one is super fun. That was fun in the loop too, because there's like 3 different loop points. It loops back to different points. Okay. So the whole track is like actually 7 minutes long on the game. That one's fun. It's kind of has a Radiohead chord progression right there.
Yes.
That 1 to flat 2 with a major 7.
Yeah.
That's a fun progression too. It's basically, that's a 32 bar or 16 bar progression.
Okay.
Almost all these songs are based on like the 4 chord progression concept.
Yep.
But you can expand on that. And so this one does that too. So it does that same progression twice. I love to talk theory, so I hope it's not too much theory.
Not for me.
All right, good. And then the third time through that progression, I changed that first chord. Then I just start substituting chords. So instead of a 1, it's now the 6.
Yeah.
But then keep the other ones the same. But now we have a new relationship. So like going from here to here is darker and heavier than like here to here.
Yeah.
But it's a small change. And then back to the 4, and then again change the 4th chord to this, which is a similar chord. So instead of B flat major, we're doing G minor. Just changing the bass down a third. Easy trick that changes everything above it.
Can you play it up an octave for me? Do you mind doing that?
That's my chord.
Yeah.
And then
awesome.
And then the 4th time through, and change the 2nd chord. Yeah, so that's it.
Awesome.
So just swapping out a few chords, so it never quite feels like it's the same thing over and over again.
Right.
And then like the sound of it too. The sound of that one was really wild. It's just a sound I had made at one point. It's just like a synth sawtooth shower just raining down on you constantly. And it feels like to me like the melody just pops out of that, almost like sun flares or something. Just like this melody is just coming out of that's this chord progression.
Yep.
The melody was super fun. It's, if the first one is a melody that lasts about 16 bars, and then there's like this breakdown section with these big like wah-wah chords, and a drum, pretty much the drums kind of take the lead there. They're kind of unpredictable. They groove, but they don't, the groove keeps changing. You can't quite catch it.
Yeah.
There's like this background sound, this like reverse sounding type synth thing in the background that's kind of building up tension. And then the melody comes back. And something I like to do throughout this album, I really did like just challenge myself to make things like as interesting as I wanted them to be. And thankfully the team let me go as crazy as I wanted to. So the melody is now 32 bars because it doesn't end like it did before. It keeps going. And then there's that big drum fill. And then the second half, the melody is then harmonized in thirds. Not in thirds, but 3-part harmony. Wait, yeah. That's the wrong chord.
Yeah.
And it's all over the place. It would be really hard to sing. That's another fun thing about doing synths. You can have melodies that you can't sing that are just octave plus jumps.
Right, and
that's really something I took from like
too. Yeah,
it's something I took from early video game music, like Mega Man, Mega Man stuff, or where the melodies are just like all over the place. And they're so fast, but still memorable.
Yeah.
So that one is really satisfying. In the very end, it does change the chord progression, like just once at the very, very, very end, little cadence.
And it stays up the whole time too, because that's another thing. Like, I liked how they didn't all end the same. I couldn't predict exactly how each track was going to end. Do you know what I mean? Like, and I'm sure that's a product of how you put the soundtrack together, or maybe it's not, but I liked that. It was like, oh no, it's over. It's over. And, that was cool.
Some of that is I had to find a way to make it loop. So
sure.
So there's an ending on the track, but there's a point where it can just loop back.
Sure.
So none of them really have like an ending. Just they need to kind of keep going. Yeah. Which is fun.
Yeah. So Void Compass, you said that was the other track you released as a single. Again, obviously great track. And this one I found really interesting for my personal musical brain, because there's a point like 1 minute in, everything drops out and it's one line, and I can think of it as one line, but I also liked thinking of it as like treble and bass playing together, but not really talking over each other. They kind of do a little bit, but you know what I mean? It was just interesting to like hear it as like one polyphonic line, but also think of it as two voices talking and having a conversation. So I just loved that little window of that track.
It's this melody.
Yeah.
Or is it?
Yeah.
Yeah, another based on a 4-chord progression. Another one this one doesn't go to 1. It starts on flat 6, flat 7, and then a chord I love to use, the major 9 chord with no third, or a slash chord. You can make an F over B flat. So a triad with a fifth below it in the bass.
Yep.
This is hollow kind of sound.
Yeah.
And then that loops, except this time the 4th chord is now a flat 3 chord. It just goes back and forth between those.
Yeah.
And then that melody's like right in between that rhythm.
Yep.
That's even the melody.
Yeah.
So that's that like interplay I think you were talking about.
Yeah, it is, because on the synth, like when you play it on piano, it definitely sounds like left hand, right hand. And but when you're listening to a synth do it, you can almost imagine one. I don't know. I hear it as one line.
It is.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, you're right. That's awesome you picked that up, because it is. The Prophet 5, you can play up to 5 notes at once, and I definitely use that limitation a lot.
Okay.
But you can also unify everything, make everything in unison, so you can only play. It becomes a monophonic synth, so you can only play one note. So. Okay.
Right. Okay. Yeah.
And it can glide, or so it can. Portamento, basically.
Yep.
You can control that. So then you have that like. So
it's
all
so
feels
good.
Unified now.
Yeah. Oh, it's so good. I loved that fucking line.
Thank you. It's kind of weird, that second note, that D natural.
Yeah.
After that D flat chord.
Yeah. But see, it leads in though,
flat.
right? Yeah, that's what it's doing. It's the leading tone in its own way.
Yeah. That's another like really long melody that just keeps developing and changing. And that one's weird, because the form of that one doesn't. It's a through composed. It's just section A, B, C, D, E, F section.
Okay.
That was one of that was like the 4th one I wrote, and we needed something fast, and it was written for a level where it's written for most of these were written for levels in mind. That one we need to get the player to like play fast and like get them to build up some speed.
Okay, sure.
So that was the premise of this one.
Yeah.
And it just keeps going, different sections. We got that blast beat section, which is super fun. a solo. The solo,
ridiculously fast solo.
I didn't play it. I didn't have to play it.
I figured. I was like, boy, I don't know, man. But it was awesome.
It is playable. It is fast.
Yeah.
It is playable, but I didn't have to play it. I programmed it. Good. And from all my years of studying NES stuff, they didn't have to play that stuff. So I used that. Okay. It's like, all right, let's also do that. Program things I don't have to play.
Yeah. I'm just looking at my list here, deciding when I want to step away from it. Let's go ahead and talk about one more before we take a break from it, or however it ends up going. Devil Star is I'm literally going track by track, people. If you're just literally just one after the other. It's how I listened to it. It's how I took notes about it. It's simple. So Devil Star is next. And the cascade at the beginning, it's so satisfying, and you didn't invent that, but it's so beautiful. It's just I just love it. I'm like, yes, the cascade. And you do it a few times. Yeah.
Yeah. Thank you. I can play that.
Do it.
No, I thought I could. There's a weird rhythm to it.
There is, because you're not making it just 16ths, right? You're kind of splitting them over the bars weird.
Yeah, so it's dotted. It's 6, 6, 6, 5, 5, 4.
Oh, cool. Okay. Yeah,
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2. There it is.
Okay. Cool.
It just kind of rushes into it, and yeah, thank you. That part is pretty. It's a pretty little.
It is.
Little thing that comes in a few times.
Yeah, this is another one where the bass really stood out to me too. The bass in this one's great.
Thank you.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
This is the one song that I used a patch that was a built-in patch. It's patch 32, and it is. I saved this one because it's also used in Daft Punk's Robot Rock.
Okay.
That's. If you ever heard that track, it sounds like a guitar, and there is guitar mixed in, but it uses the same exact patch with a little bit of the modulation on it, and it just sounds gritty and kind of like a guitar. I was like, okay, I don't have a guitar, and I knew we needed. I had one song, and then very early on, we were like, okay, we need a song for this level specifically. This level needs its own song. Yeah, and this was one of the last songs I actually ended up getting right, because it's he used. I think an Iron Maiden track. I don't even remember, but he had a placeholder track in mind.
Okay.
And it was just a metal track, and that's not my wheelhouse. Yeah. I don't play electric guitar. I've been in bands my whole life, and I've listened to plenty of metal and like it, but never written one.
Yeah.
So I was a little. I don't know how exactly I'm going to do this. My first attempt at writing this level ended up being Ouroboros. Which just isn't heavy enough. Cool track, but not heavy. And so this was one of the last ones. And I just knew I wanted to use that sound. And I didn't really have much musical idea other than let's get some low, rumbly sound and go from there. So it was very difficult to write. This is probably the hardest one for me to write. Took the most effort.
Interesting.
But it is also one of my favorites. Once I came up with that second section, there's it's just floating.
Yeah.
It just kind of takes off there.
Yep.
I took the rhythm from the original Straylight theme. This I didn't talk about that before, but there's this rhythm, this weird wonky rhythm, which really is it's a 7/8 rhythm with an extra beat, so it becomes 8/8.
Sure. Yeah.
So that's that rhythm. So I reused that, brought that back, and so now I had a B section, and I could talk about this one for a lot. So we do that, and then it comes back to kind of the A section, but there's a new chord progression in here.
Yeah.
That chord progression comes back in the C section. I'll mention that in a second. But then I really kind of thought of like a devil, like a demon and angel type kind of story with this one. Oh, cool.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So when we get to that B section again, there's that arpeggios and stuff. But now there's a new melody.
Yeah.
Which to me is just like here's this angel trying to like save you from the depths of this dark level, demon level.
Yeah.
It's all in harmonized in thirds. It's a nice fluty sound.
Yeah.
And just a bunch of leaps, which would of course be really hard to sing.
Yeah.
But just this like want to get this like soaring impression. So I took so many iterations of this melody, over 100. When I looked at my track, there was like I recorded over 100 different like iterations of this melody.
Oh wow.
Another cool thing this part does, theory wise, now it feels like we're in D major, D flat. Sorry, it feels like we're in D flat here.
Yeah.
Based on the melody. So I took the same chord progression as before, but just by when you the melody has so much pull as what you hear as tonic. So before, the same chords were in G sharp minor. We were here.
Yeah.
But now we have a different feel. Now it feels like it's in D flat. But I didn't change the harmony, just changed the melody.
Oh, cool.
And harmonizing the melody in a D flat, emphasizing D flat. So it does this whole melody, and then it climbs back up like it's gonna soar away, but then like the demon comes by and like tears it all down, and we have this what is that part? I don't know.
Yes.
That's like the nastiest chord progression I've ever come up with.
What?
And I can't take full credit for it. What is it? So we're in G sharp. We'll just say we're in G sharp, but it's sort of like G sharp minor. Yeah. It's a sus, and then it goes to the major.
Yep. Yeah.
And then the flat 6, and then the 4, and then the flat 4.
Yeah.
Similar to a flat 2 in the relative major. So
right, yeah.
A flat 4 in G sharp. So it's got a leading tone in there.
Yeah.
It's already got the minor 3 scale degree in there. So you have this sort of like resolution. It's almost tonic dominant resolution.
Yeah.
But this is wrong chord.
That was another thing that really stood out to me on several occasions was the voice leading, because there's so much circle of fifth stuff, but not necessarily with substitutions, right? You know what I mean?
Just the wrong way.
Right. Yes. So,
but circle of fifths.
Like it's like, and I heard that in other songs too, where I was just like, well, all of this makes sense because theoretically it works, right? And, I would say most of the time when I'm listening to modern music, I'm listening to music that works because we're used to hearing it work that way now. But 100 years ago never would have worked. You know what I mean? Does that make sense?
Yeah. Our ears are definitely opened up to more things.
Yeah, exactly. So, compared to the way that harmony used to just always acceptably run, but I just heard a lot of the bones of that structure. Like it structurally, it made sense. It made sense.
I'm so glad. I'm so glad. I really detest 5/7 to 1. So there's none of that in here. There's sometimes where a 5 goes down to the 1, but not.
Okay, yeah.
But very rare, or very rarely. There's always tonic and tension and release. But there's so many other ways to go to 1. And
right.
5 to 1 to me is just like it's the most obvious way. Like you opening the door, like, do you want to go in this room? Yes, and we're gonna go in the room. And what you'd expect. But it'd be cool if you open the door and someone pulls you from behind and you're like, oh wait, now I'm in this room. I didn't how'd I get here? Like that.
But you got there in a logical way. That's the thing too. You're not just randomly going elsewhere. You're going somewhere with the understanding that this works, right?
Yeah. There's other satisfying ways to get there.
Exactly.
Get to 1.
Exactly.
You also it's rare where it's the other thing about dominant tonic, it's rare that at least in the soundtrack where you know that you're going to be somewhere else, like sitting
Yeah.
at the top of a roller coaster, like, okay, we're waiting for it to go down the hill. Like,
Yeah.
I more prefer the time like where you're just like, it just shoots you off. Like you don't anticipate it. So there's not a lot of like anticipation. There's just like ups and downs, and you kind of just ride with it, and then you find
Yeah.
yourself somewhere else.
Right. Amazing.
Yeah. Oh, I'll say one last thing about that Devil Star thing and
Please.
the Devil Demon thing. So the melody before that was all, like I said, soaring and
Yeah.
big leaps, and then we get the other melody, which is really loud, and it's just a chromatic scale. Like it's the complete opposite. We're just going down a chromatic scale, and at one point the melody is basically six. It's just such a nice, a very satisfying contrast.
It is. Yeah. Did you want to say something else?
That's it.
Okay.
That's it.
That's it.
That's it about that one.
And we're done. No, I'm kidding.
I'll say one more thing. Actually, I'll take that back. There is. I need to post this. Maybe I'll have when this comes out. Maybe I've already posted it. But there is a reference to the robot rock. Like I threw that melody in the song. Somewhere.
You did. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's kind of well hidden. It's also very obvious. Like you definitely
Once
hear it.
you hear
It's
it,
not like,
kind of like.
It's not like hidden in the mix. Like you hear it, but it's masked. We'll say.
My one of my favorite examples of that in my own brain, and this is so random, but is the arrow in the FedEx logo. It's like once you see it, you never unsee it. But if you didn't know it was there and you're trying to find it, you're like, what? There's an arrow in there? You know what I mean?
Right.
Yeah. So it's the
I
best.
love stuff like that.
I do too. I love it. So, Rob, you've been on the show before. You're 88-bit. Like, this is important. This is a huge part of who you are. You've done absolutely phenomenal piano reductions, I guess, of 8-bit
arrangements.
music, and you still continue to do that. So give us a little update on, you mentioned that you're really into the streaming thing right now, and I'd just love to hear you talk about that for a minute before we finish off the Straylight soundtrack.
Yeah, sure. So, I've been doing 88-bit, which is my piano arrangement project. The idea for that was I want to make piano arrangements of NES music to highlight some of the lesser known stuff and to pay homage to the composers who wrote this stuff. It's really phenomenal music. It deserves to be heard. Like Marble Madness is one of my can't think of the word, but pinnacle songs in my repertoire.
Yeah.
Orchestra's Ring. Oh, that's where I took that melody for, or that chord progression. Orchestra's Ring, the boss theme, uses not that exact progression, but it uses that chord. I'm gonna play it real quick. That's the chord progression it uses, and that's where I got that
cool
chord from. I've never seen it anywhere else except for that random game. It's flat 4.
Love that.
So that was my original concept for 88-bit. But this whole time I was pretty much doing that, I've also been running this game because we've been working on it for 5 years.
Oh wow!
In our spare time, like we're all, we tried to get some funding. Most companies, game publishing companies, are pretty hesitant to fund any VR stuff. It's still a really small market. Mm-hmm. And so we all did this, in our spare time, and it was cool to finally be able to show this side of me, because that 88-bit thing was really just a side project. I was been in bands my whole life and loved writing music and writing songs and performing in bands. I truly do love it. And I was like, I got just sick of I wanted to do this project, but the impetus, what put me over the edge was I was just sick of trying to get people's schedules together and people being busy and not able to practice or play shows. And I was just like, I can't move forward. So while I'm waiting for things to happen, I'm going to do this 88-bit side project thing. And that took off on its own.
Yeah.
So it's been cool for people who've only known me as arranging and performing piano to finally show this other composition side of me. And the response for that has been great. And as far as what I'm doing, an update with 88-bit, I've done a lot of conventions, MagFest, played PAX a couple years ago, PAX 2022, I think.
Okay. That was last year.
Amazing. Yeah, PAX West.
Love that.
Put out an album last year, Super Mario 64 lo-fi album on
oh my God.
Karaga Records. I was like, should I wear that shirt? Is that going to be too self-promoting?
No, show
it's
it.
purple.
Show us.
I have a Karaga shirt, a Karaga Records shirt. They've been great. They do lo-fi VGM stuff, and so me and SafePoint, he also known as Robo Rob, he started this label and he asked me to do this Super Mario 64 album, which is not something I ever had on my radar. We did this like bunch of jazz arrangements, lo-fi type style.
Yeah, and
that was super fun because my 88-bit stuff is pretty much true to the original, like just play the notes and try to find a way to play it on piano. This was, recreation and a reharmonization of classic themes. That came out last year and super fun. Really proud of that.
Yeah.
Too.
Nice.
And I've got a bunch more things that are on my list to actually get recorded now.
Oh, good.
A good long list of Final Fantasy. I actually want to record the Marble Madness soundtrack and then a bunch of other games that are on my list. So,
and you're coming to Minneapolis.
Yep, I'll be at Minneapolis for VGM Con. Going to do a panel about Straylight and the soundtrack, and kind of show my Logic file. And
sweet.
Get dig into how some of the sounds are made and how the music was written and composed, and I can also play with Insane in the Rain music.
Yeah, so, they just announced him coming, so yeah. Yeah,
and because I recorded on his album last year, recorded piano for his Insane in the Rain album, which was so fun.
Awesome.
Got to go to Seattle. Don Palambi's on there, Nico Mendoza.
Love it.
Andrew Sumabat on horn. Of course, Carlos.
Yep.
And then I'll be doing a set of my own. They haven't announced it yet, but I'm sure they will eventually pretty soon.
Awesome. Oh, that's so exciting. It's going to be a great weekend. Looking forward to it. April 14th through 16th, everyone come to Minneapolis.
It's a great event.
Plymouth, but they call it Minneapolis West, which cracks me up. I'm like, nobody in Minneapolis calls it that. I'll tell you that.
I think it's good they say Minneapolis. If it said Plymouth, I would
nobody'd be like,
be
what
less
the hell
likely
is
to
Plymouth?
I was like, this is just a really tiny con, but it is
a
smaller con, but it's getting bigger, and it's
is
one of the most fun. And a lot of people in VGM scene are going to this, especially last time.
Last time, I feel like it's like we're on the edge of it. Just So we should value it like it is right now. But it's a fantastic time. So I'm so excited you're coming back. I'm looking forward to it.
Me too.
So just a few tracks left on the Straylight soundtrack. The Railgun Run is what's up next, and this one you mentioned. I think it was the whichever one where you were explaining how it's like a 7/8 rhythm with a beat added. You do that a few
Double
times,
Star
which
and Straylight.
I thought was really fun. How you kind of pretend to fuck with meter like that, right? Because that's really what. It's an illusion, and I really enjoyed that. And you kind of do that in the Railgun Run as well. But really, just a happy vibey track. So tell me about it's a very songy track too. I thought I could just imagine some. And were there voices in here?
No voices.
Wow, God.
Just
okay,
just
the synth. Okay, but it's very songy.
Like
it's like an anthem kind of.
This one has a clear melody that you can. It's not too wild that you could sing.
Yeah.
This was one of the earlier ideas I had, and I really struggled with it. It was really just a concept, and you talk about that rhythm. I just had this rhythmic concept. So they're like a common dotted rhythm is 1 2 3 1 2 3 1 2 3 1 2 3 1 2 1 2 1 2 3, and I wanted to try to smooth that out even more. So if we double it, it becomes 6 6 6 6 4 4. I can then do kind of what I did with that Devil Star riff. Is 6 6 6 6 7 7/7, so make that 4/4.
Yeah.
Took 2 beats. I don't know, kind of mess around with the 16th notes. So that's what's happening there. And so it ends up feeling like we have these weird accents where it feels like, oh, is that odd meter?
Right.
No, it's just weirdly accented.
Yeah.
So this one took me a while because I had a much long, like I had a longer chord progression or just more repetitions. And once I got rid of the repetitions, and then it started to flow a lot better. And then came up with the second section, which is a really clear melody. And a new chord progression. The chord progression with this is fun too. So the chord progression from the first section, A section, it's kind of jumping back and forth. They're kind of in pairs of chords. So 1, 3, 1, 3, and then flat 6, 4. Oh, I said 1, 3. I meant 6, 6, 1. Whatever. It's these like it's 3 pairs of chords, which ends up being a total of 5 unique chords. And then I use those 5 unique chords for the chorus, but just in like every other chord. I played around with different patterns. I ended up liking that progression. Wait, that wasn't it either. Yeah, that's it. And then, so a lot of minor mode switching back and forth.
Yeah.
You never quite know what the next chord's going to be. But it never feels totally out of place because we've heard all these chords before.
Yeah. Well, it fits it's Straylight. It's not the track, but it's the vibe of the game. It's the vibe of the soundtrack.
Yeah, I hope so.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, it all seems, it goes together. You know what I mean? It's cohesive.
I'm glad. I tried, a lot of it, the new material musically, although I did take the form of Straylight, so it's just A-B. So there's nothing revolutionary there. It's another one where the melody is twice as long, kind of like last Campfire. When the melody comes back, it's now extended a little bit longer. I feel like I channeled some Mason Lieberman near the end. The bass is just like going really crazy. Yeah. And I did a song for him for "This Is the President of the United States." That's the name of the game.
Okay.
And he just had some like really like wild like bass stuff.
Yeah.
Just, like, fun, busy stuff. And so I went a little hard on the bass at the very end there. And I feel like, it was some Mason Lieberman inspiration.
Do we know if he's coming? Is he coming?
I could ask him.
Yeah.
I'll ask him. I think he'll be at GDC. He's definitely be there.
Oh, yeah.
I'll be there as well.
I'm skipping that one.
But I'd love to get him at BGM Con. I don't think he's ever been.
No, he was here last year.
Was he here last year? Oh.
Wasn't he? Yeah. Yeah.
Probably was.
Yeah. So,
right.
Ascent of the Juggernaut. This one also funky, meter business. And, it's basically 9/8, but it's not, right? It's like 5/8 plus 4/8 is...
However you want to group it.
Yeah. And so I wondered how you grouped it.
It's not compound meter. It's not 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3.
No.
Definitely.
No.
9, 8 plus 1 or...
Yeah.
This one's my favorite one. This one is like the second hardest one to write.
Okay.
And I was playing a musical, is what kind of inspired this. I was playing White Christmas, Irving Berlin's White Christmas.
Yes.
And the touring version of that has a keyboard 2 part, which took the original string quintet and put it all on a keyboard part. And it was so difficult.
Oh, okay.
Because they're individual lines, and it's like...
Right, yeah.
That's how you save money.
Yeah.
Hire one person to play it all. So I was on the string patch, and I just came up with this first few chords. And like just love that sound. Looking back, I'm pretty sure I was inspired by Aerial Race Level 4 from Marble Madness.
Yeah, you were.
Yeah, it's definitely kind of the same vibe. We have this minor third dissension right here. It's just so like dark and ominous.
Yeah.
So that's similar to...
Yeah. Yeah.
So harmonically, like this one gets a little theory-wise, theory in the weeds, but harmonically, I had the idea of like, would it be cool if I could make something where it's still kind of in 4 chords, like a 4-chorded cycle, but it's never the same 4 chords every new group is a different set of 4 chords.
Sure.
So this one took forever to come up with. I also limited myself to only 3 types of chords, and it's all these hollow chords. I mentioned one earlier.
Yeah.
It's so this first one here, they're all slash chords. So the 3 chords basically are. I'll do it in C. I wish I should have my other camera up, but one would be a C, so G over C.
Yeah.
So it's kind of like a C major 9 with no third.
Yeah.
Or a B flat over C, so a suspended dominant.
Yep.
Or a D over C. So you can think of that as a
Lydian.
D7 with the 7 in the bass, or a D or a C sharp 11 with no third.
Yep.
A C and 13. So those 3 chords are what I limited myself to this whole song. You can also, so you basically think of it as like a triad and a bass part that are never together. They're never in sync.
Yeah.
So I can also take a triad, change the bass around, C over F, C over B flat,
Right.
C over D, and I get, that's another way to think of those 3 chords.
Sure.
So I used that for the whole piece. There is one moment where I broke it and I played a major 7 chord. Just voice leading, that's where it needed to go. Yeah. But other than that, the chords never repeat. So certain groups of chords, like 4 chord progressions, will come back, but never like one after another.
Okay.
I take that back. There is one moment where I do repeat it, just a different voice, different voicing. So yeah, it's just harmonically, it was just like what can I do harmonically with this? And then there really isn't much of a melody at first. Then we get this rhythmically wonky arpeggio that's like starts and stops.
Yeah.
If I were to repeat it, it would be 9 notes. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. 1, 2, 3.
Yep.
And I play with that sometimes. There are times where the drums come out and then it's just this. And I do play with it ends up being a 9/8. So there's this 9/8 groove and it grooves, but it's also not quite as wonky because it's a 9/8.
Right.
So
right.
I had a lot of fun with this one. And then finally there's another one that's through composed. It doesn't really repeat.
Yep.
The last section.
Where it's all dreamy.
It was all dreamy. It finally goes to this one chord I hadn't done. Like combination-wise, I could do this chord, I could do this chord, which sometimes I go to. But I'd never done this one until the 3rd section.
Oh,
it's just like we're somewhere else now.
Yeah.
And that sets up the last section. Then the chords start changing at different times, and there's a melody that comes in, and it's just this this dreamy section. The
dreamy section.
I'm really
good.
This one I want people to listen to it. I'm really proud of this one.
You should be. It's yes, listen.
Thank you.
Ouroboros. This one definitely bumps. Like I have a, stereo system, and my subwoofer must have accidentally got turned up a little too much. So everything, even my TV watching, is just a little too boomy, and I'm just too lazy to fix it. It would take me 7.2 seconds, and I haven't fixed it. And this one definitely had my apartment like banging a little, which was fun. And this one has a really fun dropout too. Talk about Ouroboros.
Yeah, I want to shout out to Robo Rob or Save Point, or Rob Anderson is his name. I worked with him to help do some additional mixing. Okay. So I sent him some stems, the kick, the drums, the synths, and the bass, and he helped kind of mix those separately, and then did all the mastering as well. So he made everything like sound super bumping. Okay. Yeah, he was great. I highly recommend working with him. So if anybody needs a mastering agent, or he's great. So yeah, this was the 2nd track I ever did, and I just got the MIDI involved, or got the MIDI kit in. So I was like, oh cool, I can program stuff and sequence things. And I was definitely listening to a lot of Lewis Cole, so you might hear some of that.
Oh, nice, yeah.
In the chord progressions in the bass.
Sweet.
This one was written for, like, the last level is called Ouroboros, which is the level's kind of like an infinity sign.
Oh, okay.
So there's 2 sections to the song, and they both start in A A minor. But the first section is it's really in C. Even though it goes to C minor. It's, again, mixing modes.
Yep.
And then the second section starts in A minor. But now we end up staying in A.
Okay.
So A becomes the tonal center there. So it's got these two halves. It's just a fun song.
Yeah.
And yeah, they both... there's another little trick. There's a 2/4 bar in there. So it's got this weird rhythm. 3, 4... where it starts on the offbeat.
Yep.
And then there's a 2/4 bar, 1, 2, where then now the rhythm starts on the beat.
Okay.
It's the same rhythm, but it just but now I feel it in a different way for the second half of the song.
Love that. Love it.
And then when it loops, it's like the chords change when you don't expect. You won't be able to hear the loop on the recording, but on the game, in the game, that's a really subtle thing.
Yeah. It's a fun one. The final track, which is called The End. I haven't skipped any. Did I skip any? I didn't skip any.
We didn't talk about the very first
one. We'll talk about the first one too, because, oh my God, yeah. But The End, this one's fun because the percussion kind of just sneaks in too. It just kind of like not randomly, but just kind of sprinkles itself into the texture.
Kind of random.
Yeah. And then finally, like, it's just like past almost like 1 minute in, everything kind of comes together and it's just so grand. So let's talk about the part before the piano comes in, which I love, but yeah.
Yeah, this is the only one that has any piano on it.
Yeah.
And I wanted to do a different, so this is the only song too piece that I would mostly written before the game. Everything else was written with the game in mind. This was a piece I mostly wrote in college.
Interesting. Oh, cool. Okay.
Yeah, it was just a piano idea. It was just this 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1 with these accents. And I had this, I just thought it would work for the game, and also having some timbral change would be cool for this last level. This is the only one I had to like kind of rework too, because when I first pass at it didn't quite fit it was too different. Okay. So I had to make it, I had to add more synths and stuff and more drums.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's more of a minimalistic piece. You can hear some Steve Reich inspiration, John Adams.
Yep.
And formally it's kind of backwards. It starts really, really intense and it just kind of calms out or grooves out, and then it just gets quieter and quieter and like more and more calm as the piece goes on. So there's 3 sections, that first opening section. And yeah, that's just kind of like building, just a build up, I took some elements from other songs, threw them in there, and there's like the drums are just kind of sprinkled in, and then finally everything drops, and then it opens up.
Yeah.
And it just sounds grand and grooves, and it's just intense.
Yeah.
And then we get to the last section, which this like really warm, satisfying, huge warm hug of chords. And it also it just sounds devastating to me. Like this chord, these chord movements, they're so low.
Yeah.
That's just the word that comes to mind. But I wanted, so it's your last level. It's like an intense level, but my thinking was like, we're going to like kind of help the player just focus on like what it is they're doing. And then also give a sense that like they're coming to the actual end. Like they had a wild journey through this wild place that was nothing like they've ever seen. And like, you finally kind of reached literally the end. Yeah. Yeah. And then there's a melody in there. So the melody is the only thing I didn't write beforehand. The melody was written with the game in mind. This, there's this calming melody that kind of goes all over the place. Not all over the place, but it's just there.
Like what it kind of waves. The first track though, it just sets that mood immediately, right? Like, I mean, the very first track. Yep. It just immediately took me somewhere,
Oh, good.
And I hear the kind of minimalism influence there too, like right how it starts. You can tell this isn't going to be 80s. This isn't the 80s. This sounds like it, but it's not, you know?
Good. Yeah, there's a little bit of reference there, but something new. Yeah, first track is just a remake of Straylight theme, really. Yeah. It's the same like chord progression, notes. There's like B pad, except same exact notes, F sharp to G sharp to E or G sharp to E. But the melody now is clearly an F sharp, so like we're not in B anymore. Yeah. Where Straylight's in B, but it's the same notes, but now F sharp is being tonicized. So F sharp feels like tonic.
Yep.
Tonic.
Yeah.
Right? This is not tonic. No.
Right.
It's F sharp. Yeah. So that's a concept I really love to play with. Taking taking notes that you're familiar with and changing the tonal center in clever ways without not tonic, not 5-1. And there's some more ties to the game. Like, so this is the level select. So you're just sitting, you're on a platform. So you're not floating. Okay. You're looking at the world, the levels, and you can choose what level. So this is called platform, and it's the only one. So it's very stable. It has a floaty feeling to it, like what you're about to embark on. A lot of reverb, but harmonically, it is. Yeah. Here's tonic.
Yeah. Love it. So good.
That's all of them.
That's all of them. I know. That's all of them. It's like, I just know, I can tell when I hear a soundtrack if I'm like going to be listening to it years from now, and I'll definitely be listening to this just for leisure, right? Leisure and pleasure.
That makes me really glad. I'm really glad. I hope so.
Yeah, I will. It's so great. And I also love, and it's come up a number of times, but just kind of the wonderment, just the positivity, I'm really into that these days, hearing a soundtrack that doesn't make me feel like I'm, trying to topple the Berlin Wall with force or something like that. It's like, no, we're going to have this great adventure and I'm going to support you musically along the way and we're going to have fun. I really loved that vibe.
I love that. I love that description. Yeah. I hope that's what it should be. I wrote music that I want to hear and listen to. That didn't quite exist yet.
Good.
So
do more of that.
I'm glad. Yeah, that's pretty much always, unless I'm writing for something very specific.
Yeah.
Yeah. They gave me freedom to pretty much write whatever they trusted me to write whatever I felt was best for the game. And I'm grateful for that trust.
Yeah.
It's amazing what can happen when you just when you trust someone.
Right.
And let their creativity flow.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Now, I always ask this question. The answer is usually I can't talk about it. But is there anything that you're working on that you can tell us about?
I'm not working any more games right now, so there's nothing I can't really talk about, I don't think. I have like everything finally just like the game came out. I did this concert series in Minneapolis where we reconnected. Mm-hmm. And mostly working on 88-bit stuff. I have a bunch of projects, some other collabs with other creators, other artists. Mm-hmm. I've done some stuff with Icarus Kid and Mega Ran, and working on trying to do some more stuff with them. Some more stuff with the Karaga Records. And then, that's just a lot of little projects that I've been, I can now finally like kind of knock out.
Awesome.
And Twitch streaming like that is,
yeah.
You asked about it. I didn't really say anything about it, but that's been a big part of my life and a really fun part of my life. Stream 3 days a week.
What days?
And right now, Tuesday, and it hasn't changed for a while. Tuesdays and Thursday evenings. I might change the time, but it's around 6. Mm-hmm. But I might make it a little bit later. And then Saturdays at 8. This is Eastern time.
Yeah.
But I started doing that it's been over 2 years now, and found and cultivated a great community of supportive people who like what I'm doing and like my music and me as a person, and like I like them. They're wonderful. Like they're just so supportive.
Yeah.
We just had a vinyl campaign for Straylight get funded.
Nice.
And they were like the most supportive people out of everyone.
Wow.
Sharing it, pledging, and to have that amount of support is like the whole thing is like life changing. Streaming is weird and different, and not something ever like was on my radar.
Yeah.
But to have this kind of support from people who aren't biased or anything, it's like not your friends or family,
right?
People who just come in with an open mind, like I like this, and that is so empowering.
Awesome. Yeah. What's is it just /88-bit?
Twitch.tv/Rob Kovacs.
Oh, it's Rob Kovacs. Okay.
Yeah, because I have 88-bit everywhere else, 88-bit music pretty much everywhere else, but there isn't 88-bit music on Twitch.
There is?
Yeah, you should probably talk to him sometime. Yeah, Trevor Gomes.
Okay.
I'm actually not sure if it's Gomes or Gomez, but I think it's Gomes. He is an excellent pianist, and he's done a lot of stuff with. He's played on game soundtracks. He's done a Pokemon piano album. So he wrote the arrangement for the Celeste piano album.
Oh, cool. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Hilarious. He's a legit guy and really good. But he has that name on Twitch.
Okay.
So I use my own name.
All right. Well, the soundtrack is streaming and all the places. Where can it be purchased?
Bandcamp.
Okay.
It's also released through Emperia Records, EMPERIA Records.
Okay.
They've been great. I'm really happy to partner with them.
Cool.
So as of now, the vinyl campaign is over, so you can't order vinyl. But I'm pretty sure we will be offering vinyl again once everything's pressed. Okay. And there is a chance of we're working on getting CDs and tapes too.
Oh, funny.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's the one thing I can't play right now. I still have a stack of favorite tapes because, I mean, obviously that's what I grew up with was tapes, like literally making mixtapes. But CDs I can do. CDs I can definitely do. Tapes. Love it. Oh my God, tapes.
It's something special about just like popping a tape in.
I know. You're going to have to get out the new number 2 pencils again, though, if you're going to be using tapes. Look, you've got a Walkman right there. Is that a Walkman?
It's a Jensen.
Oh, okay. Close enough, yeah.
The Karaga record labels gave it to
fun.
everyone, all the artists.
Oh, that's awesome.
So, yeah. And
the sound.
Just play.
Amazing.
Yeah. It's neat. It's really
I want
neat.
one. Amazing. Oh my God. Yes. Well, Rob, seriously, such a pleasure to listen to that soundtrack. It was great to see you when you were in town last week, and I'm super excited for VGMCon in April. And just thanks for making some great music.
Oh my gosh, thank you so much. Thanks for taking time to talk with me. Thanks for letting me talk about all the theory of all the songs. And
Anytime.
Thank you for giving me some time.